Again, my name is Michael Webb, and I'm the chairman of the Greater Dallas Business Ethics Award, and I'm pleased to welcome you here to our program today. Former Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart said, "Ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what is right to do." I think those are good words to open our meeting today. I like to keep those short so they stick in our heads. And I appreciate everyone's appreciation for ethics by attending today and supporting those folks we are recognizing. The Greater Dallas Business Ethics Award honors companies who exhibit the kind of integrity where ethical conduct is not a show for others, but an integral part of their culture. The awards were begun in 2000 by leaders of the Dallas chapter of the Society of Financial Service Professionals to honor and promote ethical business practices in everyday operations. Those leaders were Gary Morris, Marvin King, and Larry Burgess. Now, Gary Morris is now teaching expats how to invest their money in Hong Kong. But with us today, I'd like to recognize Marvin King and Larry Burgess. Would you gentlemen stand? I'm very privileged to be able to continue this and thankful for what you did, and I'm sure everybody in this room is as well. Thank you again. Through the years, more than 30 companies have been honored with this award, and 9 of those have gone on to win the American Business Ethics Award. In fact, more companies from the Dallas program have been honored in the American Business Ethics Award than any other city in the U.S., so I think that says a lot about our great city of Dallas. Integrity and ethics and character are hallmarks of our city's most successful and prominent businesses. And so we are especially proud of our ongoing relationship with the Better Business Bureau, which brings superior credibility and renowned consumer advocacy to our process. And we're also very appreciative of the ongoing partnership we've had with Aiken Gump. We appreciate the fact that lawyers need to be ethical. And that's why we roped them into this. And with that, I would like to welcome Ken Mangus, partner in charge with the Dallas office of Aiken Gump, and have him say a few words and introduce our next speaker. Ken?
Thank you, Michael. It is a pleasure to be here representing the good folks at Aiken Gump. And as Michael pointed out, there is some irony with having a law firm co-sponsor and a program giving awards for ethics. Normally that gets a chuckle, but Michael mentioned the distinguished Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart, who is perhaps best known for a quote where he said he couldn't define pornography, but he knew it when he saw it. True, 1964 case. I think much can be said the same for ethics. It is hard to define the presence of ethics. It normally is defined in terms of the absence of ethics. And we are very lucky today to have a distinguished speaker who can talk to us in detail about that. But we are also equally honored to have a distinguished introducer of that distinguished speaker, Forrest Smith. Forrest has served this community in so many ways. A distinguished lawyer in his own right, so many civic leadership roles. One cannot recite them all in the time allotted. Also had a brief episode of temporary insanity where he ran for mayor of Dallas, but was convinced by the electorate he should stay a lawyer. And we are very lucky to have him now in his capacity as chairman of the board of the Greater Dallas Better Business Bureau. Forrest, please come out.
Thanks very much, Ken. I would make a note with respect to Aiken Gump. The person that founded that company, Henry Aiken, was my professor in law school in 1949, and he was known for his ethics, and he built that firm on ethics, and I assure you that you don't have to take a back seat when you represent the law firm of Aiken Gump. We're proud of you guys. Before I go any further, I want to make sure that I do say a note about my good friend, Carrie McGuire. Carrie, where is Carrie? Carrie, I know you be introduced later, whatever, but Carrie McGuire is such a great friend of mine and such a promoter of ethical behavior. What he's done for SMU is legion. I just want to make sure he knew how I felt about him, and Carrie, I'm always glad to see you. I'm also glad to see my two granddaughters who are with me today. There's Mackenzie right here, just out of Oklahoma State, and London's cutting school at Hager today, but this is her birthday, so that's why she's here with me today. Coming over, London said, noting my age, she said, "Why do you go to so many of these luncheons? How many have you been to over the last 65 years?" And I thought that was an appropriate question, and I said, well, I've probably been to maybe 1,000 lunches since 1960 when I started visiting lunches. But I say, I've never been to one that I really didn't think was worthwhile. And almost in every case, I got something from the luncheon. I took something away, either met somebody or the company or the people putting on the luncheon had something to say about their organization that I benefited from. But I got to tell you that of all the lunches that I've ever attended, the one that I have the most confidence in, most importance with, and the thing that I think is the most important is this one today. When you're dealing with the business ethics of what's going on in America today. And I'm sad to tell you that I don't think it's ever been as bad as it is today. There's not one moment that you can watch television or pick up an article and not read about another fallen angel. And it can be a lawyer, because we have unethical lawyers. It can be a banker. It can be a doctor. It can even be a minister that doesn't cross the line and live up to the ethics of value of this community. It is in fact just an epidemic of what's going on. So to be here today to join with DCEO and Aiken Gump, the BBB is awfully proud to be a sponsor of this award, and we think it's one of the most important things going on in Dallas today. And I have the privilege of introducing our speaker, Richard BOWEN. Richard was a chief underwriter of Citigroup, one of the many financial institutions that engaged in activities that led to the recent financial crisis. He was concerned about the effective mortgages that were being purchased and sold. And he repeatedly warned his superiors about the potential financial consequences. They didn't listen. Richard had a choice at that point. He can go down the road of, let's play the game, good old boy, save my job. Or he could say, you know what, this is not correct. I need to do something about it. He chose the latter. So he became what we now call a whistleblower. Some people put that in a negative connotation. I put it in a very positive connotation, because it takes guts when you jump out and cross that line and call to halt behavior that is not beneficial to your corporation or to the community. So he's made appearances on numerous shows, 60 Minutes and others. And because of this, Richard was honored as a CPA of the Year by the Dallas Society of CPAs, the DCEO magazine, and other awards that he's received. Today, he's a professor of accounting at the University of Texas at Dallas, and you can read his extensive about his story on his biography. It is indeed a real pleasure, and would you help me bring to the stage Richard BOWEN, a great whistleblower.
Thank you. Thank you, Forrest, for that very kind introduction. We're here today to celebrate ethics. We're here to celebrate ethical principles, ethical leadership, and to recognize 4 companies that truly follow the ethical principles. Our country was founded on ethical principles, and we seem to be getting away from that. For example, did you know that 52% of the employees in Fortune 500 companies have personally witnessed ethical or legal misconduct at the office. 52%. 34% of those employees said that their managers do not display ethical behavior. Now, history tells us that the collapse of every great civilization began with the erosion of core values. Core values, that's the ethical principles, guys. And we're not following the ethical principles that our country was founded on. Now, I was quoted in the New York Times as saying, by God, I've got to leave this country better off than the way I found it. And folks, I am worried sick about our country. I am worried sick about what this country is that we're going to leave to our grandkids, their grandkids. I have a passion about ethical principles, and I have a passion about ethical leadership. Now, to give you some of the background for my passion, everyone in here, I'm going to ask you a question. And you all are just employees of a company, and you've been there for a while. So let me ask you a question. What would you do if you saw illegal behavior going on around you at the office? You saw repeated incidents where your customers and your investors were taken advantage of. They were lied to. And these seem to be clear examples of violations of what you thought were your company's guiding principles, their code of ethics. And yet they were repeatedly covered up, and people looked the other way. And you had this gut feel that if you said something, you could lose your job. So, what would you do? Well, I felt like I had to tell what I knew. I started issuing warnings. Warnings which went to the top of Citigroup, warnings which went to the board of directors. Now, folks, I was one of 375,000 employees in the largest corporation in the world. I had 7 layers of management between me and the CEO. And I am not a Clark Kent with a Superman outfit underneath the CPA garb. I am not a risk taker. But I issued the warnings. Warnings which no one wanted to hear and no one listened. 2.5 years later, 3 bailouts later, $350 billion in capital and toxic asset guarantees later, and the United States government owned 36% of the world's largest bank. Now, my story is only one story that has come out of this financial crisis. For background, in 2006, early 2006, I was given a huge promotion. I was responsible to make sure that the $90 billion a year that we purchased from other mortgage companies and banks met our policy guidelines. They were good mortgages. And Citigroup would take those mortgages and they would turn around and they would sell them to investors. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, mortgage securitizations. And when they sold them, they would give their guarantees. They would give their representations and warranties that those were good mortgages. Well, as I was trying to get my arms around my new responsibilities, I discovered in June of 2006 that over 60% of those mortgages did not meet our guidelines. And yet Citigroup was turning around and selling those as good mortgages when I was saying they were defective. So, silly me, I started issuing warnings. I wrote email. I put it in my weekly report. I made committee presentations. I cornered people in the hallways, at the water fountain. And through 2006 and 2007, the volumes kept increasing and the rate of defective mortgages increased to an excess of 80%. Now, I knew that I needed to get to the board of directors. There were huge losses involved with this. But how do you do that? I was agonizing over that. When on Friday, November the 2nd of 2007, it hit all of the headlines that Citigroup had called an emergency board meeting for that coming Sunday, November the 4th. And I thought, I've got to get my warnings to that board meeting. So the next morning, Saturday, sitting at my kitchen table, I put together an email. I sent it to Robert Rubin, chairman of the board, and I sent it to the other executive officers. And I told them the story about the defective mortgages and how I'd been issuing warnings for a year and a half, and the rate of defective mortgages had increased to an excess of 80%. And I said, we have large losses in this portfolio. And I also said, come in here from the outside and investigate what's going on here, because everybody here already knows. Well, I got their attention all right. I was stripped of my responsibilities and told not to come back to the bank. And folks, this was not a fun time in my life. It was not a fun time at all. But through the grace of God, you put one foot in front of the other. You go forward with life. I went to the SEC. In July of 2008, I testified for 2 days before the SEC. I gave them over 1,000 pages of documents, and they got pretty excited. I mean, these young prosecutors, they were going to make their bones on this. They said, Mr. Bowen, we are going to pursue this. And then we had the bank bailouts beginning in October, and I never heard from the SEC again. And they not only locked up my testimony, they buried it. They continually refused to release, under request under the Freedom of Information Act, to release any of the 1,000 pages of documents that I gave to them. Now, I know why they hadn't. And in fact, last week, I was in a televised interview with Gretchen Morgenson of the New York Times. I told her the reason they are not releasing any of those documents is because that would be admission that SEC and the government knew that there was fraud within Citigroup when they bailed them out to the tune of $350 billion. So I went to the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission. I met with the commission's senior investigative and legal staff in February of 2010. But before I even got there, they had sent 2 of their investigators over to the SEC. And they had gone through 2 days digging through the 1,000 pages of documents that I'd given to the SEC. So they already knew the story, but I gave them some additional documents. And they got excited. They said, Mr. Bowen, we want you to testify. And on March the 22nd, I received an official invitation to testify in open hearing on April the 7th of 2010. And in the letter and in side conversations, they told me, besides your presentation, which will be carried on national television, give us written testimony. And they said, you can have up to 30 pages of testimony. And they told me what they wanted me to include in that testimony. The damning evidence that I had told them about and given the SEC. And they wanted me to submit that testimony by March the 29th So on March the 29th, I sent them my 28-page written testimony. Now, when they received it the next day, it was as if the whole world had changed. He said, yeah, Bowen, well, we told you that you could have up to 30 pages of testimony, but we have decided that it is too long. And we will tell you exactly what to take out of your testimony. And with that, they told me to take out the same damning evidence that they had originally told me to put in. I'd gone to the SEC and given them warnings before the bank bailouts, the violations of law, the fraudulent representations which were given to the purchasers of mortgage-backed securities, and that I was stripped of everything and thrown out after I sent the Rubin email. And they further said that the edits were not optional, that if I did not make the edits, I would be taken off the witness list. And if that happened, I could not tell anyone because of legal restrictions. And they knew that. So, after a night of prayer, and it was heavy prayer, folks, I decided it's better to get something in the record than nothing. So, I sent them my edited 20-page testimony. And this became my official testimony. They put it on their website the night before the hearings. So let's go to the hearings. On April the 7th, I testified right after Alan Greenspan. And I held up in front of the television cameras the email that I had sent to Rubin. And I said, I warned Robert Rubin, chairman of the board. Now, in all of the Q&A that follows the witnesses, they ask very penetrating questions, and that's the time for the commissioners to wave their fist at the television camera and tell the American people how outraged they are. But in all of my Q&A, there really were no real questions of substance. No one really asked about the Rubin email I just held up. And in fact, through the remaining 3 days of hearings, there was only one reference to that witness Bowen and the Rubin email. So, obviously, there was some decision that they weren't going to allow any talking about my testimony. I was quoted in the New York Times as saying, I believe corruption extends to the highest levels of government. And folks, I've seen it. It did. I witnessed it. And the corporations that are involved, and I don't take my word for it. I've got a very good friend, Michael Winston. Some of you may have heard the name. Michael Winston was a very successful executive. He was in the C-suites of Motorola, of Merrill Lynch, when he was hired as the chief leadership officer of Countrywide. And in his very first week on the job, he identified the Mozilla policy for growth, and that was fund them. If a borrower wants a loan, fund it. If a borrower wants a loan, they will get a loan. And Michael Winston started going around and said, wait a minute. You've got to underwrite. You've got to check into the qualifications of the mortgages. And they were going through some motions of doing that. And he kept issuing these warnings. And because he was well known as a C-suite executive that had been hired by Countrywide, he was asked to visit with Standard & Poor's. They came down to a visit and tell Standard & Poor's what great policies they had. He said, I'm not going to do that. You can get somebody else to lie to them. I'm not going to. And they did get somebody else. And he was stripped of his responsibilities and ultimately fired. And he was vindicated in a court hearing, and that's in the appellate process. Let me give you one other example. Gary, who many of you may have heard of. Gary was a senior seasoned attorney when he joined the SEC. And he was responsible to investigate. He was, been with them a relatively short period of time, a couple of months, and he was asked to investigate insider trading. So he identified some suspect transactions, went to interview the hedge fund managers that were involved in this, and didn't get any very satisfactory answers for all of these huge stock purchases that were made before an acquisition magically made them worth a lot more money. And he identified and triangulated and found a very senior Wall Street executive that it appeared that they had met with and had discussions with. So he went to his manager at the SEC, and he said, I need to go visit with this guy because it appears that there was something having to do with ultimately these insider tradings. And his manager said, no, I can't let you do that because this man is very well respected and very tied in. So he went to his manager's manager, or his manager's manager. And he said, after sending him an email, he sat down with him and said, look, the evidence indicates I need to interview this guy. This is crucial. And he said, Gary, I agree with you. I mean, this manager's manager was very reasonable. He said, you know what? We do need to pursue this. We need to pursue this to the end. And let me circle up with everyone, that your boss and everybody that's involved. And in the meantime, I know that you've got vacation accrued. Go ahead and take your vacation. And when you get back, we'll make this right. He was fired on vacation. 2 congressional investigations later, he was completely vindicated. And the SEC officials were censored. So corruption does extend to the highest levels of business, to the highest levels of government. All companies, even the government, has code of ethics. Enron had a 60-page code of ethics. Citigroup had a very comprehensive code of ethics. And in fact, every employee had to undergo annual training in the code of ethics. And part of the code of ethics is that if you see something as an employee that's not right, you have to report it. That's in the code of ethics. But everybody knew that really wasn't the way that things worked. So we are here today to celebrate ethics. There is a quote by Albert Einstein that I like. The world is not dangerous because of those who do harm, but because of those who look at it without doing anything. We have to encourage employees to come forward. They have to feel that their feedback is valued and that they want to have the feedback of the employees. Now, we're celebrating our 4 companies today because they have truly embraced ethical policies. They have truly embraced the ethical policy, the principles, and they put them in their corporate culture. Now, all of us, even outside the corporate setting, have a great opportunity. It's an election year. So how about we evaluate our candidates based upon our founding fathers' ethical principles? These principles that made our country great. And if we can get back to them, then we will keep our country great and we can reverse the decline that, quite frankly, we're in. Folks, we have a great opportunity. Each and every one of us has a responsibility to speak out and vote our choices and make sure that we hold people accountable. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Richard. The policies he talked about, the ability to communicate from the very bottom ranks of a company to the very top, that free flow of communication is one of the key elements that our judges look at. And it's one of the separating values between a company that is ethical and a company that truly acts ethical. Thank you again, Richard. We really appreciate your time. I want to take a minute to acknowledge the previous winners that are in this room already. There are several companies, and we're very pleased that they come back and they remain involved. Kimberly Clark, Carley Company, Kahn Mechanical Contractors, Interstate Batteries, Purdy McGuire, DHD Films, and Agency Entourage. Did I miss anyone? Is there someone here? Please give them a round of applause. A lot of the people on those companies serve on our judging panel, and we're appreciative of that. We want to make sure that we continue to give back as we look to evaluate these companies. Now, to present this year's awards, I'll ask the winner, one of our winners from last year, Hussein Manji of DHD Films, to join me at the podium.
Any class coming up here? Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate it. Richard, wow. Thank you for sharing those insights. An interesting fact, I worked for Citigroup in the credit card division as a risk analyst from 2001 to 2004. All I can say is I had no exposure to the internal risk because we were too busy catching customer fraud. And that's probably a problem that we had over there. Now, I want to share a quick joke with you guys. You might experience this in companies that you interact with. There's a manager that comes up to one of his team members and says, "Gary, you failed the ethics exam for the third time in a row." This is the exam that we talked about a minute ago. He said, "I can't have you being an engineer in our company any longer. I'm going to fast track you to the management track." Unfortunately, that does happen. Michael, thank you once again for the wonderful introduction. It is an honor for me to stand here in front of each one of you today. I would like to thank God first, followed by my amazing team, some of who are here at the table, but many who are hard at work at the studio. I want to thank our clients and our families. At the end of the day, without their support, last year's honor could not have been possible. In our studio, we have a wall of fame dedicated to showcasing all the amazing honors that we have won over the last 16 years. From Creative Excellence Awards to Business Growth Awards. Over 40 different awards. But none mean more to us than the 2015 Greater Dallas Business Ethics Award. Winning this honor last year was a validation of the hard work, the team we had assembled, and most importantly, the way we do business. We are not a B2B or B2C. We are a B2H, and H is for human. I think one of the best personifications of this spirit was the late Trammell Crow. When asked at a speaking engagement at the Harvard Business School, "Mr. Crow, what is the one thing that is the greatest element of your success?" And after a long pause, Mr. Crow replied, "It's love. It's the most powerful force in the world, and it will do more for us than anything else we can do individually or as a company." This one sentence sums it all up. Integrity is the only way forward when you love everyone around you, your team, your clients, and even your competitors. Today, I, Hussein Manji, stand in front of you, pouring love out to each one of you. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, okay, now it's time to do the fun stuff. Not that Richard wasn't extremely fun. Hussein's going to help me bestow the awards this year, and so I'd like to recognize the following companies as I introduce them, and we'll see a quick video on each one, and then we'll come to the podium. So let's start it off with, this is in alphabetical order. For our first honoree is IMPRIMIS Group, Valerie Freeman.
I feel that our culture here at IMPRIMIS Group is very comfortable and collaborative. We have to work together. Teamwork is stressed each and every day. No one can do their job here without the support of their fellow staff members, executives, everyone here. So having a culture that's team-oriented is very much a plus for our company. To bring ethics into the workplace requires starting from the very beginning. When employees start with us, I sit down with each one of them and I talk about our values and I talk about ethics and integrity. And also, all of our executives here have to role model ethics in action. We have to have integrity. And if we don't have it, our employees won't have it either. This is really a great honor to be recognized for ethics. Because it's something that we all strive for, and especially in our company that's been around for over 30 years, it's a great recognition. Without ethics and integrity, I don't think our company would have survived all these years.
Enjoy that.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone that's responsible for putting on this lovely luncheon, and certainly the sponsors and the judges. As you know, it's a great honor to accept this type of an award, and I accept it on behalf of our companies, IMPRIMIS, BravoTech, Freeman Leonard, and Answer Team. As you saw from the video, we've been in business over 30 years, and I believe that our ethical practices have really contributed to our great reputation in the community, our longevity, and our success. We have people that have been with us for over 20 years, over 30 years, and they help us to learn to take the high road each and every time when it comes to ethical dilemmas, and there are many. And so to be recognized for ethics is really the greatest tribute ever. And certainly high fives and kudos to all my great executives and staff, because without them this wouldn't be possible. Thank you.
Our second honoree is Steve Romerman. Excuse me, it's Lone Star Analysis CEO Steve Romerman.
Lone Star is an analysis company. We do complicated math models. When you do that for a living, you find out there's two separate components. For clients, they believe the message and the messenger. The message is all the math that we do, the complicated mathematics. The messenger is the idea that I'm being objective, that I'm telling the truth, that I don't have my thumb on the scales. So you have these components of collaboration, trust, objectivity that a lot of people think of as ethics. For us, that's deeply woven into just doing what customers pay us to do, what customers have to believe that we're doing, or if they're going to get value for what they pay us for. Well, there's a real sense at Lone Star that we've got a special place, that we work with a special group of people. What we mean by that is that we want to look for the behaviors that are leading indicators of success for the company and for our clients. We want to catch people doing what's right. We have an active program that we call Catch 'em, which is catching people doing what's right. And people get feedback from all of their peers. So to have external recognition like this award is a real sense of accomplishment, that it's not just us talking to each other, that we really have built a special place here, and it really matters that we go to all this trouble.
Steve is in Houston today and was unable to accept the award, but his partner, Matthew Bowers, would you please come to the stage and accept the trophy and acknowledge on behalf?
So the first thing Steve told me was, please don't drop the award. So I will bring it back home. Second, we really appreciate, one, being nominated, and two, winning this award. It does mean a lot to our company. One of the things I did want to say is, for us, it's not about the processes and policies and procedures. To us, it's about building a culture of trust and openness, where anybody in our company, doesn't matter who they are, can come to us with an issue, with a problem, with something that they're very worried about, and that the company as a whole can deal with that and move forward. For us, we view our culture as absolutely essential to us doing business. And as Steve mentioned in his video, the key thing for us is our customers have to trust us. We deal with very sensitive information, and when you go to a board of directors or a CEO or a general manager, if they do not believe that you are absolutely open and objective, we would not be in business. And I want to thank you again. This external recognition of our culture is again very important to us. Thank you.
Our third honoree this year is Staffelbach.
Staffelbach's culture is all about excellence. It is about excellence from concept through realization. In everything we do, we are focused on our clients. It's all about doing the right thing, and it's about doing the right thing for everyone. And I think our company is focused on very, very importantly, listening. Because once we listen to our customers, listen to our people, listen to the external environment, we know what's right and we do it. It starts in an orientation that I have with every new employee, talking about a code of conduct in our company, talking about respect for other people, talking about the things that we do that matter. And I think ethics is all about what you do when no one's looking. And I think it stresses the importance of doing the right thing at all times. It's a really challenging world out there. It's a very unique place right now. And I think the value of character, values, integrity, and ethics is so critical. And I think what's most special about this award is that ethics and the character issues all resonate with our clients, with our people, with our staff, with the external world, with this organization. That means so much, and it makes it very special for us.
Joe, will you join us at the stage?
Thank you so much. This means the world to us, and it's especially meaningful because my partner and founder of our company is out there. He started our business based on ethics and ethical conduct and doing what's right. We celebrate 50 years this year, and this award makes it even more special. I want to thank the judges. I want to thank this entire organization. It's very, very special for us. Thank you.
Our fourth honoree is UR Holdings. Stephen BOLOS, CEO.
UR Holdings is a limited partnership that has a handful of apartment renovation, multi-housing businesses within it. Our industry is interior-exterior renovations of multi-housing properties, roof replacements, and things in the apartment, multi-housing, senior living industry. Our culture is driven by the why in our lives, and our why for our business is serving God, seeking to understand His call for our lives. The ethics component in the workplace with regards to the client, for example, has to do with how well we manage the relationship and how we treat our client. And again, when things don't go well, everybody's getting along and everything's fantastic when things are good, but when things don't go well, that's what separates the men from the boys, if you will, on how things are managed. We see everything we do with our client as their property is our property. We want them to feel as though we're truly a partner. And and that word is used quite a bit in our industry, but we like to think that we use it purely for the purpose of which it was intended, to truly be a partnership. Being recognized for our ethics in our business is very exciting for us, and I'm very thankful. I'm hopeful that this opportunity encourages other business owners to strive for greater ethics in their business, but also realizing that ethics is merely a byproduct if they're honoring God in the workplace.
Stephen?
Good afternoon. We're excited. Thank you so much for being here, and we're so excited about this. I'm very thankful and privileged to be the one representing UR Holdings and accepting this award today, so thank you all for that. How do we define ourselves? Success with significance. That's our trade. Changing and impacting lives. That's our vision and that's our mission. And the cornerstone behind our vision and our mission is Jesus Christ. Jesus is our Lord and Savior. We believe that honoring God in everything we do changes everything. We talked earlier about how things need to go back to our founding fathers of this country. And the founding fathers of this country were strong biblical spiritual men who loved the Lord. And so in serving our clients and serving our customers and as we all work together in community, if we honor God in everything we do, like the video spoke about, having ethics and integrity and a great culture, that's all just part of loving God. Love is a very interesting word and a very uncomfortable word to use in the workplace, especially from one man talking to another about love. But that's what it's all about. If we love each other, if we honor each other, integrity just follows suit along with that. With me today, if I could, this is maybe out of play, but if I could get the folks at those two tables with UR Holdings to stand, I'd like to recognize them. This group of individuals, and with them in front is my partner, Kevin Kirkwood. These folks represent a small part of almost 200 individuals across the United States who strive every day to honor God in the workplace. Thank you guys so much. And thank you all for this award.
Congratulations to our honorees. Hussein, thank you for helping me with that, and congratulations again to you from last year. Well, the Greater Dallas Ethics Award would not be where it is without the support of Mr. Kerry McGuire. The McGuire Center for Ethics and Public Responsibility, SMU, was established in 1995, and since then the center has supported student and faculty ethics-related education, programs and activities, as well as outreach. Kerry McGuire embodies the qualities that define principled behavior in business, public service, and our personal lives. So, inspired by Mr. McGuire's longtime commitment and support of the Greater Dallas Business Ethics Award, and in honor of his tireless leadership and advocacy for ethics, we have established the Kerry McGuire Spirit of Ethics Award. Mr. McGuire, would you join me at the stage? Thank you, Mr. McGuire, for all you do. Please.
Thank you all so much for coming to support this program. First of all, I'd like to introduce my daughter, Blaney McGuire Hess. Stand up. She's as straight as an arrow as you can get. We call her Judge in the family. One of the speakers said they don't like to go to a lunch and not learn something. Well, my wife, who looked like Elizabeth Taylor, died about 3 years ago. So we had a collection of the 100 greatest books ever written. I've now read 70 of them. And guess what the number one cause of events in history is? Women. Back to the Cleopatra and going forward, women have been the number one factor in changing history. And I'm glad to see there's a lot of women here tonight. I think ethics is good business. Forget the moral aspect. Ethics is good business. And I've been trying to promote that because unethical behavior costs fortunes. Richard Bowen gave a great speech, but I heard the same speech, I think 4 years ago at UTA, where he gave it. And nobody did anything. And I wrote an op-ed piece 7 years ago that this $50 billion write-down in the banking industry did not just occur overnight. I used to be a bank director myself. It takes time. What really happened was the board of directors and the auditors did not have the courage to tell it like it is and take the write-downs as they went. Thank you so much for your support. Bye.
Kerry McGuire, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We're nearly done, and I apologize, we're running a little long. The Spirit of Ethics Award recognizes a company that has demonstrated and championed above and beyond ethical practices. Our inaugural company boldly states, "Our vision is to contribute in a meaningful way through our work and to set standards of excellence for the world of business." Notice they do not just aspire to meeting the standards of excellence, but to setting those standards. Now, 5 decades after their founding, this company continues to design and develop award-winning interior spaces and celebrates their success by supporting more than 20 charitable organizations. by cultivating passionate, supportive, rewarding corporate cultures they built on, in their own words, values defined by excellence, commitment, details, and results. Our inaugural honoree of the Carrie Maguire Spirit of Ethics Award truly meets this above and beyond criteria. Please join me in recognizing, once again, Staffelbach. Joe, will you join me at this stage?
I'm speechless. I do want to say, first of all, I'd like to have our leadership team, I know you're out there, you have made this possible. It's your efforts, it's the leadership, but that leadership goes down to every level within our firm, and people believe that our firm is so committed to excellence from concept through realization for our team, for our clients, for the external and the internal world. So thank you very much, Mr. Maguire. You've just been an incredible example for all of us. We are so proud. We've won design awards, we've won awards of recognition internationally, but this one is so important to us. So thank you.
Well, once again, I want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank our sponsors, our judges, us supporting organizations, Success North Dallas, Financial Planning Association, and all the other organizations that work to keep these awards going, to keep the nominations coming, and to keep businesses ethical. Thank you all for sharing with us today. We hope you'll continue to do your part to create a workplace environment that promotes values, ethical practices, and behaviors. Stay ethical out there, and we'll see you next year. Thank you all very much.